So David Strauss's book that's most popular was written in 1835, and he has other writings about 170 years ago. Why is his refutation of the swoon theory so popular even today?
Well, let me back up by saying when Strauss wrote his Life of Jesus, goes by a bunch of titles because it went through a bunch of editions. But when he wrote his Life of Jesus, 1835, it was so liberal. He taught at the most liberal university in the world, the University of Tübingen in Germany. He was very liberal. The book was so liberal, he got kicked out of the university by the liberals for going against their theories and everybody else's in the world. So Strauss died about 37 years later, 37-ish years later. And when he died of disillusioned man. He gave up belief in a theistic God, and he gave up belief in the afterlife. So this guy is no friend of Christian thought. And yet, when he did his 1864 version of the 1835 book, 30 years later, he wrote a book called The Life of Jesus for the German People. And in that book, very famous criticism, Strauss said, the problem with, I'm paraphrasing him, but basically he says the problem with crucifixion is that this guy is not in good shape. Let's not kid ourselves. He is not in good shape. And when he gets down from the cross, what's he going to be able to do, 3 days later? Well, you can't walk on feet that were pierced. How's he going to get his breath if he were stabbed in the side? What about a fever? In those days, the biggest threat during a battle was little wounds that festered and you got poisoning and so on. That was the biggest thing. Even the Civil War in our country, it's what happened to wounds later. And if those things happened to Jesus, and let's just say he walked a quarter of a mile. Nobody knows exactly where the disciples were hiding. It says they were hiding. But let's say he walked a quarter of a mile. What about deer hunters who say, yeah, here he is. I got the blood trail. Up over here it is. He does dead trail, again. Blood's all over. He's bleeding, and he gets to where the disciples are and knocks on the door. They open the door. Now, what's Jesus going to say? The Jesus of the swoon theory. He says, I told you I would rise again from the dead. He's holding his side. He's hunched over. He's pale. He's sweating. Hasn't washed his hair. Blood-caked hair. Blood-caked clothes. And Strauss says, here's the problem. They would know he's alive. And they may even have praised God for answering prayer. God kept him from being killed. But alive he is. Raised he is not. What the swoon theory proves is this man wasn't raised. And if he's not raised, you've got no Christianity. They didn't just teach Jesus cheated death. He got off the cross alive. Christians taught he was the crucified. As David Strauss says, this guy is not the crucified and risen Lord of life. So I say it this way. The other critiques we gave were medical. This critique of Strauss's is logical. Because Strauss says, here's the problem. A swoon or apparent death theory, as it's often called. The apparent death theory yields a bad, sickly, soon-to-die Jesus. It doesn't reveal a Jesus who's raised from the dead gloriously. You go, well, yeah, but that's just the nature of the myth. They changed it. No, you can't get the disciples changing things because then you can't get them willing to die for their proclamation. So the problem is, he's risen. He's alive. Let's thank God for healing him. But he's not risen. Because if he was risen, he'd be healed. And we could put our hands in the scars. He'd walk around and he wouldn't limp. All I know from the swoon theory is the guy who survived death was not raised from the dead. And of course, if you don't have a resurrection, you don't have Christianity. It's a very famous thing. If you don't have the resurrection, you don't have Christianity. So on the swoon theory Jesus, there's no Christianity. Think about it that way. If Jesus didn't rise, there's no Christianity. So thank God for the answered prayer. Don't thank God for the resurrection because it didn't happen. So it would totally disprove Christianity.